Welcome to Your Journey. I'm your host, Chuck Lewis, and we got a special guest with us today, and Marques Hayes, aka M. Heezy. What's going on, man?
I'm good, brother. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well too, man. Obviously, man, it's been a transition for everybody right now. We on the hopefully the back end of this COVID-19. In the midst of this whole year, how have you and your family transitioned with this COVID-19 pandemic?
Definitely. It was tough at first because this is unknown. It was unknown to everybody though.
Yeah.
So, it was how are you going to handle it professionally with, being a teacher, but then also, as a dad, how am I going to handle this with my daughter? So just as, she's in school and she's out of school, and I'm seeing some school districts where we're thinking about, when should they let their kids come back versus, not letting them come back. So it's like, man, I end up knowing as a teacher, I'm gonna have to go back one of these days.
Yeah.
But then it's like, do I send my kid back or how safe is it gonna be?
Mhm.
I mean, just juggling a lot of those type of decisions, man. But I think one of the things that we had to learn real quickly was that, man, you just got to keep living, man. I mean, can't really get stuck in this bubble like that. So I did let her hang out with friends and things like that, man, just because these were the same friends she was hanging out with COVID is still going on, but pre-COVID,
Yeah.
they was hanging out together. So I mean, if anything was going to be happening, I'm like, look, man, I can't take away everything from it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, man. I'm a parent myself, so it was tough them first few months because you was trying to figure out what is school going to be like. Okay, so it's online. They said for a month or so, and then it turned
Right.
into 2 months. Then it turned in okay, it's going to be like that the whole semester. But in the midst of that, life is still going on. Your kids are still kids. They still want to get out and play with friends because they don't understand the whole pandemic. All they know is that they're going to
Exactly.
school. You know what I mean? So it was a transition. It was a place that we had never been before.
Mhm.
And we're still in the midst of that pandemic right now, but now with vaccines and things out of that nature and more information, more knowledge about it, things seem like they're getting a little bit better. So everybody's got to make that decision for themselves, how they want to proceed with the vaccinations and safety, but it looks like we're moving in the right direction. But let's get right into it. So Marques Hayes, you're from Flint, Michigan. Talk about what it was
Yes,
like
sir.
going to Flint as a kid.
Flint, Michigan was great, man. And I'm gonna tell you why it's great though, because Flint, Michigan was a city that did not have a lot of money, man. So all of your friends and things like that, you guys are all pretty much the same. So what they considered fun, you considered fun. Going to the court to play basketball, whether it's going to the field, play baseball or play football. Playing hide and seek in the neighborhoods. I mean,
Yeah.
around apartment buildings, all of these things. I mean, it was, you know, and if we couldn't get to the court, it was taking one of those little milk crates, man, and nailing it to the telephone pole.
Yeah.
I mean, you was just finding a way to do it, man. So, Flint was fantastic in that nature, man, because it was everybody was the same, man, and everybody seemed like they was in the same boat. Uh, Obviously, you once you get a little bit older, kind of how those hard times was and things like that, man. But I'm grateful for Flint, Michigan, man. I mean, if it wasn't for Flint, Michigan, it wouldn't be me.
Nah, man, that's big, man. So you talked a little bit about it. Sports, at what age did you start playing sports organized?
Organized sports, I didn't start playing until I was in middle school. Well, no, I did. I played in elementary. I played basketball in elementary. They really didn't have, full contact football back, like flag football as a youth. So, the full contact stuff didn't really come in until really around that middle school time.
Mm, that's what's up, man. So you attended Southwestern High School in Flint, Michigan. What was your experience like there as a student and as an athlete?
Man, as a student and as an athlete, man, it was great, man. We had it's funny because my mother worked in Flint City schools too, and she worked at the rival school, Flint Northern. So she was like a teacher ed assistant there. Obviously that's the same school where that Nicholas Sparks went to. A lot of guys went to, man, and so I'm across town at the other high school, Southwestern, which it was actually at the time it was a 7 through 12 high school, which is not many of those. So it was definitely intriguing from that aspect. From being I was there from my 8th grade year all the way till I graduated though. But I think it was fantastic because I get to see a lot of myself in like some of the teachers that I had there. Like I didn't notice, but a lot of the teachers that I had, they were also coaches. So I'm seeing how they were pouring into the students and pouring into the student athletes, kind of giving them little nuggets that they can chew on, man. That ultimately, I look back on those things right now and I'm like, man, they was giving me some treasures.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times people don't realize that how important like those teachers are in those critical years. When you're talking about that age bracket from seventh grade to your senior year, if you got some individuals that really care about the students, I mean, they can really drop some gems on you that are going to carry out through the rest of your life, man, that can really help you move forward or point you in the right direction of which path you need to go on. Because, during that time, you're trying to figure yourself out. You're trying to figure out who you are, what you want to try to become. Then you looking at your circumstance, the neighborhood you're at, whether it's good or bad, and you're trying to put all that in a box and trying to figure out, well, where do I fit in this world and in this life with the things that I'm presented. And so that's big that you said that. And it's probably a big reason why you transitioned into the education world and the teaching world as well, and also coaching. But in your junior season, your career starts to flourish. You're on second team all-state honors at linebacker in the state of Michigan. How did it feel to achieve that?
Man, it was great. It seems like the coaches were trying to mold me from the time I'm there as a freshman. And they're just saying like, hey, actually, that was the first time I heard somebody tell me that, hey, I think you can be a college ball player. I was a freshman in high school. And I understand what the coach was telling me then. Like, obviously, I still have to prove anything that I want to get done. But he was like, hey, I see the way you're carrying yourself. I see the way you're working hard. Man, I can just see the way that your growth is going to progress over these next few years. And I think you got what it takes to make it. At that time, I'm looking like, man, is he serious? Because I'm, again, I haven't even stepped on the varsity field yet. I'm still playing junior varsity, But, I kept that in the back of my mind. So then the coach, going into my sophomore year, I get moved up to that varsity level. And I didn't know whether or not if I was ready for it or yet. Those Friday night lights, man, I was used to playing on those Thursdays, which was our JV games. But, if you got a chance to play on that Friday night, and, you're an underclassman like that, it really meant something, because back then it was, you probably played varsity your junior year, your senior year, but rarely was those sophomores making it onto the scene like that. So when he moved me up, and I'll never forget, man, my first varsity game, I had like 6 or 7 tackles in the game. I didn't know what I was doing, man. I was just running around, man, just jumping around trying to make plays. Yeah. And they said, hey, man, we got to keep you up here. So I just started to get a little bit better and better. But then going into that junior year, I think it just started really all start coming together. And, from that linebacker position and being a defensive minded person, I was all over the field, man, all over the field. So it was, all league honors. And then, before you know it, the coach coming in and telling me I was an all Michigan player, all state player. He was like, hey, I think some things are going to start happening for you based off what you've been able to do. And he was right.
It definitely paid off for you. So you touched on this a little bit, but one of your college teammates, who's one of your best friends today, Nick Sparks, actually played at your rival high school. So you guys were actually rivals in high school. What was it like playing against him in high school?
Man, just to clarify, man, Nick Sparks is my brother. I mean, that guy, we're beyond, the best friends, man. That's the closest thing to a brother that you can get, man. Yeah. Shout out Nick Sparks, baby.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, me and Sparks didn't know it, but yeah, our high schools was rivals. But me and Sparks stayed 2 blocks from each other in the neighborhood and didn't even know it, and know it until we took our visit to the University of Akron together. And I actually rode back with him and his mom. And when they dropped me off, they said, man, I stay right around the corner, right? I had no clue at all. But definitely, playing against him in high school, man, it was one of those things where you were going to have to play those Northern Vikings. I mean, because they had a ton of talent on their team. I think Nick's senior year was one of those years where they had like 12 guys go to Division I football, guys going to Stanford, West Virginia, New Mexico. It was a couple of those guys that came on to visit down with us to Akron. So that was that was a star-studded team that we were playing against. And it was one heck of a game also.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think that people don't realize about Nick Sparks, like you touched on it a little bit, but he was a great athlete, but he was a great person as well. I mean, he was a good dude. He wore that mentorship on his sleeve. You know, really, when I got to Akron, even when I came on my visit, he was one of those few guys that made me feel comfortable about making the decision to go to Akron, right, along with yourself. But just always had a great character, man, and cared about the people around him. And on top of that, he could ball too. He can also hoop too. I'm not sure how much he played in high school, but I know playing against him a couple of times at the rec, I mean, he was just a natural athlete who you could put him on any place on the field. He gonna make it happen and make a big play. But you took your game to the next level in your senior year. You went from going and being second team All-State to first team All-State and first team All-Conference in your area that you played in. You know, what went into that offseason for you to be able to perform at that level that you did?
I think just continuing to train and understanding that, you know, I didn't reach my ceiling yet. It was still some growth in me. And what ended up also happening is that throughout the off-season training and things like that, we go into our first scrimmage, I believe, of that senior year. And they decided they want to give me the ball a little bit. So they said, instead of, you know, just being a linebacker, they say, hey, man, let's handle the ball and see what goes down. And shoot, I think I scored maybe, you know, 2 or 3 touchdowns in the scrimmage. And, you know, they moved me to starting fullback in a wing T offense where, you know, the fullback is getting the ball a ton, man. So lo and behold, instead of just my duties of playing linebacker, I was also in the backfield also. So I actually remember I had the choice because I had like the media people called me at the end of the season. They said, hey, what do you want to be All-State at, linebacker or running back? Because you can be picked for both. I ran for like 1,200 some yards as a senior. That was my first time ever in the backfield, man. And along with what I did, you know, naturally on the defensive side of the ball. So I still say, hey, man, I'm a linebacker at heart. So, you know, just put me down as a linebacker.
Nah, man, that's big. So you end up committing to the University of Akron. What other schools were interested in you? And then what made you commit to the University of Akron?
Man, so I had, you know, schools like Indiana, all of the MAC schools that was around the Michigan area, the Central Michigans, the Eastern Michigans, the Toledos, Western Michigans, you know, pretty much the MAC. I could choose between which one of those I wanted to go to. I actually had a scholarship offer from Hawaii, actually, but it was kind of far-fetched because I remember the guy telling me, like, hey, if you come here, though, you know, your parents will have to wake up at maybe 2 or 3 in the morning to watch the game or something like that. You know, that was big for me. You know, mom, she want to see those games, right. You know, so I'm like, look, I gotta be in the right position where, you know, they can watch me play. But then probably the most telling one was that Michigan State came in maybe a couple of weeks before the signing date. And they were saying like, hey, you know, pretty much, are you ready? And, you know, Michigan State is probably 40 minutes away from Flint. You know, I had been down there multiple times. They had some, you know, some great players and great coaches there. But, you know, at that time, I was already committed to University of Akron. So, you know, I'm one of those loyal guys, man, where it was like, hey, I made my commitment and, you know, I'm not about to go back on that. And also at the time that I had committed, you know, we had actually 2 other people had committed from the Flint area to Akron. You know, Nick Sparks had committed, and then we had a guy by the name of Adrian Boyd, who was the running back on Nick's team, had committed also. And obviously Nick ended up decommitting and going to West Virginia, and Adrian Boyd ends up decommitting and going to New Mexico. But I stayed. I just said, hey, you know, I thought well about the people that I had met at the time when I was down there. And even though Akron didn't have the resources or anything like that, man, some of the guys that I met and obviously Coach Winters, you know, sitting in my mom's living room and saying that, hey, man, we're going to take care of your son and we're going to make sure he gets through this. You know, he's going to graduate with a degree and, you know, he's going to be a fantastic player for us. You know, he was selling it. And I mean, shoot, but he was telling the truth, though, man. You know, Coach Winters was my guy, man. Still is to this day.
Yeah. I think you touched on something that's important that we need to highlight is loyalty. You know, back in that time, I think you had a lot more guys that stayed loyal to their commitment. which is a lot different than today. You know, today's recruiting process is completely different than it was back then. And so that loyalty aspect, you making the decision and coming out to the paper and the media and saying, hey, this is where I'm going, and sticking with it, where, you know, a lot of guys nowadays, I mean, they might pick 2 or 3 different schools before they make their final commitment. And that's what the difference was back then. But you're coming from Flint, Michigan, right? Talk to us about that transitioning down to Northeast Ohio, going to the University of Akron, coming from Flint. What was that first year like academically, athletically, and even personally?
Oh, I'll tell you, the transition was, I wouldn't say it was smooth, but I mean, it had its little rocky moments to it also. I remember I was with my stepfather when we were driving down there. I was supposed to take some placement tests, but we end up missing the placement test because we're trying to look around the city and see what's what. So I remember when I got put into my classes, I'm in all of these classes that are like remedial classes, and I'm like, you know, what do these classes even count? You know, do they count as credits? They like, no, they don't. I'm like, look, there's no way you guys can put me in some classes that doesn't count towards, you know, me graduating. I said, I can't tell my mom that. So, you know, they ended up changing my classes and putting me in the regular classes. And they told me, they was like, well, we didn't know where to place you because you missed all the placement tests. So, you know, I had to blame my stepfather for that one. Like, look, man, you know, had me on the rocks, man, with these guys early on. But no, it was cool. You know, I think I probably did my best that first semester, just because I was, you know, super focused. The classes actually weren't that hard that first semester. So I think I came out with like a 3.0 that first semester. Now, every semester after that, it started getting challenges. But, you know, I learned the value of the lesson because, again, that first semester, 3.0, second semester, 2.4. And then you see how hard it is to have your GPA go back up, though. So it literally took maybe the next 3 years before I got it back up to a 2.8, 2.9, because, you know, that's being on the dean's list semesters and things like that. So I found out it was super easy for it to drop and very hard for it to go back up.
Nah, for sure, man. So you redshirt your first year, and then the next year is your first year actually playing. You guys, the Akron Zips, open up with Virginia Tech, who's ranked number 11th in the country, who has the Michael Vick starting at quarterback. So this is your first game. What was that experience like for you playing against Virginia Tech and also playing against Michael Vick?
Man, well, just to scale back a little bit, you know, so they traveled me to every game as a freshman because they said, you know, they wanted me to get the feel for, you know, what it was like college football. So actually my very first game on the field actually seeing was against the number 2 ranked Penn State Nittany Lions. You know, it's 100,000 something people in this crowd. At that time, they had the number 1 draft pick at Courtney Brown. You know, they had linebacker Brandon Short. They had a star-studded cast.
LeVar Arrington.
Man. LeVar Arrington is on that team. You're talking about, man, and they put it to us, man, on that game. But, you know, it was just to see that, to be in that landscape of college football. You're like, wow, man. You know, I know Akron is a mid-major school, but, you know, we're playing against the number 2 team in the country. And, you know, only thing you can ever ask of yourself is to just give yourself an opportunity to try to do something.
Yeah, for sure.
But then obviously the next year it's like you said, it's the number 10 or 11 ranked team in the country. And it's, you know, it's Michael Vick, who had just came off of having, you know, one of the most extraordinary games somebody has had against, you know, at that time, the creme de la creme was Florida State. I mean, everybody knew Florida State. I mean, that was like, you know, everybody wanted to play for a Florida State type of school. So, and to see what he was able to do with them, and then we got him the first game of the season. You know, it was exciting. I tell you what, man, because down at Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, man, they treat you well. I mean, we've been some places where that crowd is hostile and they're throwing things at you, you know, places like Wisconsin. But Blacksburg, I mean, they just treated you well, man. And the game was, you know, it was one of those muddy games. It was rainy and things like that. But I tell you what, it was my first game action. And I think still to this day, man, that game is on. You can find it on YouTube, man. So one of the craziest things is that, so I'm on the first I get on the field first because I'm on the kickoff return team, right? And the first thing they tell the mid line is, hey, ball is going over your head, don't back up. Just go find somebody to block.
Right.
Man, I don't know what happened. I must have zoned out, but I see the ball in the air. And I'm just going, I'm going back, I'm going back. Man, they kicked me the first kickoff of the game.
That's
so hey,
first play.
Hey, first play of the game, they kicked it. Hey, luckily I caught the ball, man.
Yeah.
I tried to hit the sideline, man. I think I got about 7 or 8 yards. They chopped me down, man. My linebackers coach Williams comes to me and says, "Why didn't you follow your blocks?" I said, "Coach, man, my mom was watching. I was trying to score a touchdown."
Hey, man, you know what? It's so crazy because that first game, you just thinking about just like, man, do I got everything set? Do I know where I'm supposed to be at? You just focusing on just doing all the right things mentally. And then they kick the ball off, you expect them to go back to one of the deep guys, and they kick it to you. So first thing you think is like, let me catch it, secure it, don't fumble it. And then in the back of your mind, it's like, if I fumble, you're thinking of all these little things. And by the way, this is your first college play. You ain't even had a hit yet in college yet. So that was big, man. But you were successful in taking care of business, man, and getting some positive yardage and going from there. But as you transition through the years, man, a lot of the players, even myself, because I was on the team with you, saw you as a leader. And going into your senior year, you were voted team captain by your peers. How did it feel to serve in that leadership role in the team?
Man, I think that's just who I was, just naturally. Again, I was one of those guys that if somebody needed something, then I was going to, help the best I could. If somebody needed to be taught something out there on the field, I was going to give them everything that I had. They was going to have all my knowledge about it. Again, always kept in the back of my head, though, that, you're still going to have to outwork me for what you want. But again, I'm not going to hold back anything because, again, as a team, man, we're still trying to win as a group. So we need the best of the best available and out there at that time. But to be voted by a captain by your peers, man, when you're in college, man, again, it's not like high school. These guys have been through it. Every one of them were winners in their own right. They had all found a way to make it to this collegiate level, which is not a lot of percentage of people can do that. So to have these type of guys, vote you as a captain, and then, to even scale back a little more, they told me my junior year, I was like 3 or 4 votes away from being named a captain that year too. So, it's just one of those things, man. I took pride in, trying to carry myself the way that my mom and my family had raised me to come up, but also, try to be a giver, man, try to give all I can while I can. While I was out there, and I just hope that I did, the best that I could do, and led the right way.
You definitely did that, man. Like I talked about earlier with Nick Sparks, really being beneficial on that visit, but also you were my host on the visit. And one of the reasons why I came to Akron was because of an individual like you. And I think when you talk about leadership, a lot of people talk leadership, but are you really walking leadership, right? So I remember when I first started playing in that first summer that I was there, you were one of the guys that said, "Hey, man, you should stay with us for the summer. When we work out, you should work out too." It wasn't like you forced it. It was very genuine though. Cause you got some guys that are forceful leaders. You were just a guy that led by example and say, "Hey, this is what we do. This is how we do it. You should do the same. But if not, you know what I mean? Just make sure that you get around the right individuals, man, to make sure that you're doing things the right way." And that was very beneficial for me because, I was looking for that, because there's a lot of guys doing a lot of different things in college, right? I'll be on the team and off the team. Right. And so for me, it just made it a lot easier for me to make that decision. And I remember this, and I don't know if you remember this, but so we're coming in like the last night of the visit, and it's you, Nick Sparks, it's like a bunch of y'all, but it really was you two guys. And you was talking to me in the hallway of the hotel. You're dropping us off, and you guys were just being genuine, man, and just talking to us and answering all the questions that I had. And that really like sealed the deal for me, right, man. So I appreciate, you sharing that wisdom and not holding nothing back. And ultimately, I mean, the career I was able to have there, not really just from a football standpoint, but from a professional standpoint. I worked there for almost 10 plus years, and to where I'm at now, a lot of that is the credit to guys like yourself and Nick Sparks and a bunch of guys, whether it was B Payne and other guys that were there on that program, man, that really poured a lot into me. So you definitely, you definitely were one of those guys, man, that, people gravitated to, because you walked it, you talked it, but you was genuine. You wasn't forceful about it. You really wanted to make sure everybody had a place of comfort.
I think what it comes down to, man, is that, it's cut from that cloth of, what type of legacy do you want to leave? Like some guys are some guys were, they were great football players, but man, they were probably terrible people too. But
Yeah.
then you had some guys who were great football players, and they were great people.
Yeah.
I've seen the guys that were able to, go on and, go to the NFL and have, some really good careers, or guys who just, went into their professional careers and, did very well then. And there's some guys that, to be quite honest, you probably just don't even remember because you didn't care to remember them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, what type of legacy did you leave, and what type of legacy do you want to leave? So, my thing is all about, hey, man, if anybody's going to remember me, man, they're going to remember me that, look, if they ever needed Hayes, man, he was going to be there, for whatever that is. I mean, I have this conversation with my guy Kiki all the time, man. He says, look, he calls me at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning at the bus station to pick him up from Jersey, man.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, look, hey, and I just told him, hey, man, I'm gonna pull out the L dog, man. I'll be there. I'll be there in about 30, 40 minutes. And this is back when, there. And I'm asking myself to this day, man, I don't even know how the heck I got down there. We had no navigation at the time. Like, how did I even find this place, man? But, hey, I pick them up, and it's like, that's just what it is, man. Sometimes you got those people, man, that you can call on, and hey, they're going to be there. So I just wanted to be that type of person.
Yeah, and I think you definitely made everybody feel comfortable. I mean, even like the small things that we used to do in the summertime, like everybody would put in $5. We would all go shopping and have like a cookout. And it really was like a cookout for like the majority of guys on the team, because it was like the guys that were staying in the house, but we would make so much food. Everybody would put in $5, and it made you feel like you was back home around family members, man. So a lot of that stuff started, where you guys stayed at, man. And a lot of the things that you guys just laid that foundation of just trying to, not just talking family, but really trying to be it. But in spring of 2004, you get an opportunity to graduate with your degree in communications. How did it feel to achieve that accomplishment?
Man, from an inner city kid, Flint, Michigan, man, to making it to being a scholarship football player, and then not only doing that, but making your way to being a player on the team, being a 3-year starter, and then so having all the fun of just being a college football player, but then at the end of the day, being able to keep true to that promise that I gave, to my mother, like, hey, I'm gonna get the degree. Don't worry about that. We all had those aspirations of, let me try to see if we can get to the NFL and do those things. But I always told her, no matter what, I'm gonna have that degree. So, I ended up, I kept that. And actually, on the day I graduated, I actually had a workout with a Canadian Football League team. So I literally, while I have my cap and gown on, I've got underneath the cap and gown, I have a black Under Armour shirt on. I got some workout shorts and some black shell toe Adidas on. And that's how I walked across the stage, because as soon as I got done, I had to hop in the car and drive down to this workout. Yeah. But still, being able to get the degree, man, is just something that nobody can ever take that away from you.
Nah, for sure. And definitely no one can take that away from you, because you earned it, you lived it, and you were successful at it. So later on in the year, you transitioned into a new role working in special education in Akron Public Schools. Talk about what that first year was like, going from being a college student athlete to being a full-time worker in the workforce.
I'll tell you what, I started off as a substitute teacher in the district, and I just so happened to sub at this school called Perkins Middle School. And I was taking over this classroom that had some behavioral students in it. And I was there for maybe 2 or 3 days. And the principal comes down and says, hey, Mr. Hayes, what did you do while you were down here in the classroom with them? And I said, I'll just be honest. I was given the assignments that was left to give, but then I was just telling them old football stories and telling them how I grew up kind of in the city, just like them. And she said, whatever you did, I didn't see one of these students running around the building or causing any trouble or anything at all. She says, hey, would you want to stay for the last 9 weeks of the school year?
Wow.
Well, hey, yeah. Why not? And then I'll tell you what, after that first year of substitute teaching, I ended up playing some arena football in Canton that summer. And I get a call back from that same principal and says, hey, would you like to come back to Perkins for the entire school year? Hey, we'll give you, you'll get X amount of dollars a day, but you'll get insurance and all of these things. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is awesome here. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was during that school year where I started meeting some of the people in special education. They were telling me like, well, hey, you ever thought about going to school? And I had not, because I had just got finished with school. And I'm like, who wants to go back? But I'll tell you what, they kind of was like, I think you found your niche working with the youth, working with these kids, trying to change lives. So I ended up going back to school, and I think I took my first 2 classes in special education. I'll never forget, I go into the principal's office and she says, hey, Hayes, what are you doing this afternoon? I said, I don't have anything going on. She says, well, hey, I need you to go down to human resources and sign a teaching contract. Even though you've only completed 2 of your college classes, you can get this permit where that, as long as you keep on taking your classes until you graduate, you can be under a teaching contract. So, I mean, it was like, so becoming a teacher wasn't necessarily what I had started off to be. But, like I said, I think it came at the right time and put me in a place that was able to start, I can start elevating myself professionally. But then it also, lo and behold, gave me an opportunity to get back and start giving back, to the game that I love.
Yeah, and you definitely have done that and got a chance to do it at another level. So in 2012, you're named the head coach of Akron East High School football program. How did it feel to get that opportunity? And ultimately, what made you make that decision, or what was attractive to you about that job?
You know what? It was the kids that really attracted me to the job because, I saw how I had coached on the staff as an assistant coach the previous 2 years. And I saw how hard these guys were working, and they were really primed. They wanted to win. I mean, just like everybody else, they wanted to win. But it also reminded me of being at Flint Southwestern when I was in Flint, Michigan. We never played a home field when I was in a home game when I was in high school because we didn't have a field to play on. And East High School doesn't have a home football field. This coming up year will be the start of my 10th year as the head coach there. We've never played a home game before in 10 years. We've never had a home crowd that we can actually say, this is our field. This is our baby. This is where we play it. We always play at other people's fields. So to be able to make an impact at the way we're making an impact at the clip that we're doing it, I think it's just undeniable that, the type of kids we have are just resilient. Our coaching staff is resilient, and we don't look at the glitz and the glam that, a lot of other places have. We just pour into these kids, and and they're giving it right back. And the dividends are showing no matter what type of resources that we have. Like I said, this is year 10. And over the last 5 years, I think we've sent 40 kids to college on football scholarships. So, the proof is right there. So that, where as long as you're being, like you said, genuine, you're pouring into the kids and you're doing the necessary work that you need to do on the back end to make sure that you're covering all of the loopholes with these kids, whether it be, hey, let me make sure I'm checking their transcripts. Let me make sure I'm making calls out to people. I mean, we've gotten kids into school where that it's legitimately me going on the internet and finding the coach's number and, emailing them and then calling the office 3 or 4 times, not taking no for an answer until they actually just tell me like, hey, we've evaluated and this is just what our evaluation is. But, you go hard for those kids, man, and they see it and they'll go hard for you.
During my time when I lived in Akron, I got an opportunity to attend some of those games in your first few years. And one of the things I can say is consistently every year you added more wins, and more wins. So you take it to that 2016 year. I think y'all might have had maybe the most wins maybe in the program history, if I'm not mistaken, or a very long time.
Yes.
But also by the end of the year, you were named by the state of Ohio Division III Coach of the Year. How did it feel to achieve that accomplishment? You think back on all the things that kind of went through that process, because a lot of people don't realize when you're a head coach, in a program where there's limited resources, it's tough, and there's some days that you probably go home and you're thinking like, man, where are we going to find the resources, or how are we going to turn this thing around? And for you to be able to do what you did, and you end up in a 4-year span being coach of the year and like doubling the wins, how did it feel to achieve that accomplishment?
Man, I think I give credit not only to the kids, I give credit to the coaching staff, because I tell them it's not me by myself. I told them I've never coached a game by myself, practiced by myself, or anything like that. It's just who I am. But for us being able to get that award was, man, it was huge, simply because in that 2016 year we started the season off on 0-3, and then we end up we played the third team of the season. I'll never forget, their athletic director looked at me and said, "Hey man, you guys have a playoff team. You guys will be there." And at the time we're 0-3, so nobody's thinking about the playoffs. You're just thinking about just trying to get better the next weekend.
Just trying to
get one win. But we end up running off 7 wins straight, and we actually ended up we won our league championship for the first time in 40 years. And then we're going into that playoffs. Well, we're trying to get into the playoffs, but we're ranked as the number 9 seed, and you got to be the number 8 seed. But because our win in week 10 of the season was against a higher division team, we actually leapfrogged the team that was in the 8th seed. And then it's like, well, what do you get for being the 8th seed in the Ohio playoffs? You got to play the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
So that year we had to play the number 1 seed, which was a 10-0 team named Marlington. And sure enough, man, we go down there, we put 50 points on these dudes, man, and we win a playoff game. So not only it's league championship, it's first playoff appearance in forever for the school, and we played a tough team in that second round that we took down to the wire to the last 30 seconds. And but I think probably, and then obviously that was the year we get voted on the Division III Coaches of the Year for the state of Ohio, which was, like I said, it was huge, man.
That was awesome, man. I remember just reading about that, hearing about that, and I think we might have had a couple conversations about it. But that was just huge, because just seeing, I was at like one of the first few games when you first started coaching there, and I tried to make a couple of games a year, and just see where that program went in a 4-year span. I mean, that was huge. I mean, and then the joy that the community has, and then the guys really start having real belief, because, it's one thing when you talk it, we talked about this earlier, to talk it, but then when you get a chance to walk it and see it unfold, and that was just a great year. And then you just continue to keep transitioning that program to newer heights every year. But you're also the athletic director in the district. Talk about your current role, and talk about some of the challenges that you face in that role.
Well, I'm the athletic director for our school. So each one of our schools in the district has their own athletic director / manager. And then we have a district AD. But, it's just being able to manage the sports, being able to help out the coaches with what they need. Sometimes you got to put out like the little small fires. And then for certain things, you got to pour some water on it to try to help it grow. But it's just it's a lot of maintenance type things, scheduling, making sure we're putting ourselves in the best position to be successful, trying to put as many sports out there as we can for these kids to be able to participate in.
Nah, man, that's great, man. And you've certainly done that. And I think one of the things the most important thing outside of the wins and the coach of the year is like you're giving guys an opportunity to go to college, and to talk a little bit more in detail about that. So when I first started working at Akron, I probably was like 2008 when I was an academic advisor there. And then within that 5-year span, we started having some of your players on visits, and they started coming to school there. I mean, we were looking at 3 and 4 players, and then we had some guys commit there from your school. And just in that span of you coming in and having someone that believes in the community and wanted that job, because some guys might have turned that job down, but you took that job in and you embraced it, and you embraced the kids, and you're giving guys an opportunity to go to the next level. Most importantly, to get their education. We all know football is going to end one day. The lights are going to go out at some point. For most people, after their last high school game. For those select few that get a chance to go on and play in college, it'll be, man, when you're 22 or 21 years old, in your last college football game. And that elite class that gets a chance to go to that next level, it will be over for them. Whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or 10 years, it will be over. You're going to be in your 30s, 20s, And so what are you going to do? And that degree is what's going to help you there. So by you opening the door and giving guys an opportunity, and you calling people and bugging coaches around the country of saying, hey, I got some guys that need an opportunity that can play, that can help your program. That's huge. So we're going to transition to the last segment of the show. It's one of my favorite segments of the show. It's the top 5 segment. So I got some categories for you. You give me your top 5 in those categories. So starting off with the first category, Marques Hayes, I've known you for a long time. You're a big fan of hip hop. Give me your top 5 rappers of all time.
Man, I hope Nick Sparks is going to be listening to this also, because we oh man, this is a battle over the years. So I'm gonna have to go with my guy Tupac, man, first. Second, I gotta go with my guy Jay-Z.
Yeah.
Then I'll go. Obviously, I love Big's music.
Yeah.
Then you got Nas. But then I tell you what, man, my last one, I got to split it, man, because it wouldn't be me if I can't throw some hometown love in there, man. I got to throw the Dayton family and Top Authority in there, man, from Flint, Michigan.
hey, so like when you so you know what, the first time I heard about the Dayton family, it was one of my guys in high school. And then when I met y'all and how hard y'all rep the Dayton family, and so anytime I hear that name, y'all the first guys I think about, and y'all really like rep them hard though, because I heard about them in high school from a friend. But then, like, once I met y'all, it was like, man, the Dayton family was big. So, definitely got to throw those guys in there, man. And they made a name. They put Flint, Michigan. Flint, Michigan always had some athletes and stuff. But hip-hop-wise, they might have been one of the first guys really to do it. And they put them on the map, man, because I heard about them all the way in Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? So,
and if you see the size of Flint, you'll be like, because Flint's not big, man. Yeah. It's not big at all. So, man. I mean, it was –
that's big.
We had to keep that music on us.
Nah, for sure, man. Hometown guys, but all the guys you name, man, are going to go down the history of some of the greatest to ever do it in hip hop. So for my next question is, give me your top 5 NBA players of all time.
I grew up in the Jordan era. I love Michael Jordan. I think that he was, obviously that's the top right there. But then, I also grew up in the midst of the bad boys. That entire, it was, for me, it was like I got to see 2 different types of bad boy Pistons teams. So the back with the Rodmans and the Joe Dumars and the Isaiah Thomases and Bill Lambiers, and then kind of like the new age bad boys with Rasheed Wallace and Ben Wallace and Rip Hamilton, Chauncey Billups. Man, I can't even. That was just a great time around that area, man. Just because it's like, come on, man, they hadn't seen that type of success since back then. Because then it was the Bulls had taken over and started to kind of run that Eastern League.
Yeah, no, that definitely. Those are some great teams right there. So you mentioned Jordan, and obviously some of those Piston teams had some great talent on it. You talk about Isaiah Thomas that was on in that 80s when they had their little run where they won 2 championships. And then when you talk about Chauncey Billups and Rasheed Wallace and Ben Wallace and Rip Hamilton. At that time, he maybe was the best mid-range shooter in the game, and the toughness that they brought on a daily basis, man. So but
they were all considered underdogs. All of them were considered underdogs. Yep. And I'll never forget. They all made the All-Star team, and I remember the coach. He started all. It was like 4 of them. He started 4 of them in that starting lineup, man.
Yeah, that was crazy, man. And they had a good run because they ended up knocking out that Lakers team. Because that was like one of the first super teams that really kind of came together, and then they knocked them off. I think they beat them. They almost swept them. I think it was 4-1. And that might have been 0-4 or something like that. But that was a good team. So my next question is that you've got a chance to travel, you got a chance to vacation. Give me the top 5 places you've ever visited or vacationed.
Man, I've been a lot of places just due to the fact that when we were traveling in college, going to some games and things like that. But being able to, down in Miami, Florida is definitely a destination. I've been there a couple of times. One time I was down there with Matthew Cherry, and another time I was down there, on a family vacation. Also, being down in that Dallas area, Dallas, Texas, I was able to go down there and actually, one of my favorite teams growing up was the Cowboys. So, I went down there and visited my aunt, and ended up getting a chance to tour through the Dallas Cowboys Stadium and locker room and take pictures everywhere in there. Man, that was that was definitely one of those top spots, man. Just from an aspect of this is where these legends play.
Yeah.
Being I had an aunt who lived out in California, man. So Venice Beach, being able to see the way that turns out there, man, was fantastic. Then another place, when I finally got a chance to go to the beach again, just on the other coast. This was down in Florida again, but down in Daytona Beach, man. Just a beautiful place to be.
Daytona's nice. Yeah, it's nice. No, there been some great places, man, that you name right there, man. I mean, like Venice. I mean, Daytona. I mean, Dallas is a great place. I've been there before. I mean, great food, great people. It gets hot, but I mean, it's a great place, though. I've been down there in the heart of the summer. I think it might have been June, and it was blazing heat, man. It was sweltering heat, but no, it was a great place, man. I've been to as well. So for my last question is, give me your top 5 movies of all time.
Oh man, love the sports movies. Love the sports movies, man. Those football movies are ones that get me. So when we're talking about movies like The Program or or Remember the Titans, these are great movies. But then I'm also a fan of I've watched a bunch of those Marvel movies and things like that, action movies. I was a fan of growing up of those Lethal Weapon movies, Beverly Hills Cop. Me and my lady watched Love and Basketball the other day, man. That was a classic, man. Classic. So, man, hey, I'm a movie buff, man. I love all types of movies, man.
Nah, man, those ones that you mentioned are definitely some of the great movies of all time and are classics. So we at the end of the show, man. First and foremost, man, I just want to thank you for coming on to the show. When I thought about a list of individuals that I wanted to have come on here and tell their journey, you were one of them because you had an unbelievable journey. I mean, when you look back to where you came from, growing up in Flint, Michigan, transitioning to the University of Akron to play ball, and then now what you're doing in the community of Akron has been tremendous. And I think a lot of times, man, in this life, we get so caught up and focus on these A-list celebrities, which we got love for them. But there's so many guys out there that are doing amazing things and impacting so many lives. And they had a story prior to them doing the work that they did, whether it was good or whether it was bad or whether it was adverse situations. And so when I think about your journey, one of the words I want to put to your journey is mentorship. It wasn't something I think that you chose to do. It chose you. And it was just naturally always in you. Like I said, when I came to the University of Akron, one of the reasons why I made the decision to come there, and I had other schools I could have went to, but when I came there, I got a feel from some individuals like yourself and other guys that we mentioned earlier here when we talked, and you were always genuine and you cared about guys. You were never going to be a guy that if you knew somebody was hungry and you had a sandwich, you're going to split half of the sandwich with them just to make sure that they ate, particularly if it was your teammate. And I think just mentoring all the guys on the Akron football team that you did, ultimately, you was just preparing for the next stage of life of what you're doing now and using those same skills every day, mentoring the young athletes that you're around, along with the coaches that you work with as well. So you're a guy that talked it, but you walked it and you truly cared about the community. And I want to applaud the fact that you took a job that most people would have turned down. You took that job and most people would have looked at that and would have been like, no, I'm not going to take that one. You looked at it and said, I could do something with this. You need to work on this, but okay, let me see what I can do with this. And you took pride in it. And I want to salute the work that you're doing, man. God bless you and your family, man, on your future endeavors, man.
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you having me on too.
Yeah, no, for sure. Much appreciated, man. Well, thanks everyone for tuning into your journey. Be safe and God bless.